All right, what's up, y'all? Ryan Schul at Straight Data Science. I called it Straight Data Science because this is straight up the truth, 100% just honesty and truth. And I think all the code samples should work. I tested it pretty extensively, although one time somebody did find a problem with one of the UDFs, one of the user-defined functions was not correct. So they pointed out and I fixed it, and I think we're at 100%. So yeah, that's it. That's the foundation here. Today, I have a very, very, very interesting topic. I wanted to talk about this project that I just worked on very recently and share my knowledge with you, what I discovered here. This is how to create a chatbot. And we're going to go ahead and do some NLP, which is natural language processing. And we're going to basically summarize the contents of SEC filings. So SEC is short for Securities Exchange Commission. This is where every publicly held company is required to file their financials, right, and disclose everything that's going on with the company if it's publicly traded, right? So let me take you through the steps and show you what I did and show you how to set up your own chatbot, okay? And basically, I think you probably know what a chatbot is. If not, then essentially a chatbot will accept natural language input. You just type in what you want and it'll go ahead and follow your instructions, right? It processes the input, usually using some type of rule-based system like a GPT, okay? And it responds with natural sounding output, right? So you can interact with this tool, with this chatbot, and optionally it keeps a conversation loop, and it will actually remember what you said to it, so it can save the conversation, so you don't have to repeat yourself if you have to go back and ask it additional questions. So it's really pretty cool stuff. If you use ChatGPT before, this is exactly what we're going to do. The only difference here is instead of interacting directly with the web browser ChatGPT, we're interacting using Python and loading some files and some documentation, the contents of the documentation into ChatGPT. So that's the difference here. So basically, you can log into platform OpenAI and get your own API key. You'll need your own key. I have a few of them here that I've tested and played around with. So this is blocked, right? This is kind of like obscured away, so you can't see what that is. And the reason for that is it's personal, it's confidential, right? Like you don't want anybody to have your key, and you shouldn't have anybody else's key, because you could run up a huge bill, and that would be very very bad, I guess. Trying to look for a more advanced word, it would be very bad, because then you have a big bill you have to pay and you haven't actually done anything. So you want your own API key. That's the point here. Let me go ahead and open up these files. I'll show you what I did. I downloaded this yesterday to test the functionality of the whole system here. So if I go one step up, I'm going to delete these 5 folders. This is 5 years worth of data. Again, SEC filings, right? And this is for Apple. Pretty much everybody knows Apple, hopefully by this point in time. You know what Apple is, right? So I go ahead, put in SEC filings. I put in my email address right there, and what I'm looking for, Apple 10K, and then after 2020. So we're going back 5 years of time. It's 2025 right now. It's May 11, 2025. So I just deleted that and then just downloaded these 5, right? So you see the timestamp here. It's 5:11, and it's like 11:30 in the morning, almost 11:30. So I have my data. So I have the data that I can work with. This is 5 years of 10K filings, and the 10K is basically the financial documentation for any publicly traded company, right? So there's a bunch of different models that we can use. I tested several of these. I didn't get anything that was really blown away with, so I went to ChatGPT. That is pretty advanced. It's pretty mature at this point in time. Some of these others are not really quite what I would like to see in terms of the maturity of the model, or the output, or the capabilities of the model. But these are a bunch of models that you can try. These are all free. Over here we have Facebook BART. We have this one, DeepSet, Sentence Transformer, and things like this. So you can test all these models. That's great. I think that's pretty cool. I tested a lot of these and it always came up short, right? That's why I went to the ChatGPT. I just wanted to give you like one single recommendation I found that works excellent. I could have shown you all the failures. Sometimes I do test a bunch of different models, and it's a very iterative process, right? You'll try one thing, you'll try another thing, and you keep going until you get something that works. I could drag the video on for 45 or 50 minutes, maybe even 60 minutes. I don't think you want to see that. I think you want to see something that's pretty crisp, pretty tight, and something that actually works. But if you want to test these other models, I would say go for it. If you want some learning exercises or some learning opportunities, it's a great experience. Basically, I'm looking at two things right here. And an embedding. An embedding is a numeric representation of data where you're converting words to numbers. Okay, so computers understand numbers very well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The computer understands exactly what that is. If you give it a word like an apple or an orange or a watermelon, it doesn't know what those things are, right? So you have to create an embedding and convert the word to some type of numeric representation of the word. Then the computer can understand what you're talking about, and you can interact with it. You can ask it questions, and it can give you recommendations. So cat and dog are going to have a very similar embedding. The numbers or the encoded values of these two things will be very similar. If you compare the embedding of a cat to a dog, it's going to be similar. If you compare a cat to finance or a dog to finance, it's going to be very different. These are very different concepts, right? So it's going to come up with a very different embedding numeric representation of that word. Okay, so we're going to look at embeddings, and a transformer basically is a type of deep learning model architecture in the back end of most modern large language models, right? So an LLM is a large language model. An example would be GPT. That's what we're looking at here, BERT and TS, and there's a few others. So I will go ahead and show you the code I came up with. And by the way, I'm going to share all this code with you. The only thing that changed here is my API key. Remember, you can go over here to platform openai.com API key and generate your own key. It's totally free to do that. When you interact with ChatGPT with an API key, they do have a small charge for these types of things. Okay, so if I scroll down here, I have some details of how this works. This is where you can go to get the key, and there is a small charge. It's pretty tiny, like 5 cents per 1,000 tokens or 6 cents per 1,000 tokens or something like that. It's pretty minuscule, but it's not totally free, right? So you're going to have to put in your credit card, and they will bill you. But again, what you what you get out of this thing is far more than what you put into this thing. So it's very cheap. It's very economical to do these types of things. Sorry, but it's very, very, very cost effective. So go ahead. I would say sign up for an account. Highly recommended. Get your own key. You put in your own key here. Okay, I'll share all this code with you. Basically, we're creating a few functions right here. The folder path where I'm reading in these files. So I just showed you these SEC files I downloaded, okay? So I have 5 years worth of 10Ks. We have 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And these are all for Apple. If you open up each one, you'll see basically what these things look like. They're machine readable, so it's not that super friendly for a person to read. A lot of this is actually HTML. But that's fine. That's just the way that they convert these types of files, right? They have a more human readable type of file. The beginning is pretty straightforward. You have basic information about the company here, but then you can see some HTML formatting over here. Some of this is, I think, actually XML, right? So I copied and pasted this into a Word document yesterday. I got 5,800 pages worth of text. So it's pretty substantial. I don't think anybody necessarily is going to read 5,800 pages worth of text unless maybe you're a financial analyst or a lawyer or something like that. But if you're not one of those, right, if you don't fall into that category, it's totally fine. We can go ahead and use this technology to interact with all the data in each one of these files and extract very useful information, right? So we're going to create a summarization using this chatbot that I'm showing you right here of this SEC produced data, okay? So I'm telling you the maximum word length is 1,500. Again, you pay for tokens, and if you send in too many tokens, the model or the LLM, the large language model, will probably actually get confused because it just gets overwhelmed, just like a person would, right? If you send it 5,800 pages worth of text, then no human being is going to comprehensively understand that, right? You need little bits and bytes, you need chunks of data. So we're capping it at 1,500 right now. And we're looking for this right now, these text files, okay? And then again, 5 years worth of data. I said get everything going back 5 years since 2020, all right? It's 2025 now. So I have a little more information here. I have the Chat GPT 4. So we're using model number 4. There's a 3.5. I think there's a 4 plus or something like that. There's a few different versions of these models. And again, if you want to test other models, there's a whole bunch of these things. There's Sentence Transformer, Facebook, BART. Let me do a quick search here. I don't want to go off on a big tangent, but let me just look here. Hugging Face models. I think there's over a million at this point. I think there's actually quite a bit more than a million. Let me see here. Base model. Okay, let's just try this one. So here we go, models. And there's basically two categories of models. You can train the model yourself, or you can have a pre-trained model. I like these pre-trained models because they've already been transformed, or I'm sorry, been trained on a corpus of text. So they introduce a model to a whole bunch of text, and the model will learn what's in the text. It could be financial, it could be any topic, it could be accounting, it could be operations management, supply chain management, anything you want. You train it on this body of text, then the model remembers what it learned and you save the model, right? And then you can load the model, run it. You have a pre-trained model. You can train the model on your own data yourself, where the model has never seen the text. You can train it yourself and introduce it to like your custom body of text, whatever that can be for your business or for your corporation, right? So there's two basic types, the pre-trained and the untrained. So I'm just trying to look at how many types of models there are here. Search models and users. I only see 664. I thought they had over a million though. Let me go back here. BERT. Maybe this was it. Or models above. I looked at this a few weeks ago and they had way more. Okay, now I'm seeing 71,000 models. Okay, so that is quite a large number. Let me go over here. I probably should bookmark these things and see where they are. Okay, and okay, so that's what I was kind of looking for. 1,000, sorry, that's 1,681,652. So 1.6 million models just in Hugging Face, right? And there's other styles of models. Facebook has its own, right? So the point is, there's a lot of models here that you can pick. I picked ChatGPT. I like this one a lot. These other models are all free. This one that I'm using in this demo is not free. But again, you have to pick the model that kind of like corresponds to the task that you're trying to achieve and accomplish that, right? You pick the right tool for the job. I've been on Wall Street for 22 years. I always say that to everybody I meet. Pick the right tool for the job and you're going to have a good outcome. If you pick the wrong tool for the job, then I can't guarantee what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. So we have the model. We pick that. We have the number of chunks. We're limited to 1,500. Okay. So again, we don't want to send like a massive volume of data into the model. We want it to go 1,500 chunks at a time, so the model can process this information and distill it and make sense of it and figure out what's going on. So this is the path to where all the 10Ks are saved. Remember, I put that over here. I just showed you that. So all my 10Ks are here. User Ryan underscore SEC filings Apple 10K. So that will change, right? So you'll change your path to that and you will change this, right? Those are the only two variables that you have to control. Everything else with this chatbot is going to run as expected. So we go ahead, feed it into the model. The model is going to take a little bit of time to process it and to think, right? And all these chunks are going to go into the ChatGPT tool. ChatGPT is going to comprehend this and produce some type of recommendation or at least somehow respond to your question, right? So I have a couple notes here. ChatGPT 4 handles reasoning better than a lot of these other models. I would encourage you to use it. You have 1.6 million models here that you can experiment with. I've tried several of these. The takeaway is always pretty much the same. They do a very good job. I think ChatGPT, that what we're looking at here is one of the better ones, and you pay for it, but again, you get what you pay for. Those others are free. If you want to pay a little money, and you're not talking about big money, you're talking about 5-6 cents maybe per request, right? So I think it's totally worth it. You get out of it what you put into it, okay? So chunk more or fewer files with a larger or total length. You can dial that around. I have 1,500. I think that's a good balance. You can put more or less, and you don't need sentence transformers for this version, all right? So this is a little bit more advanced version of ChatGPT. They have other versions that are actually cheaper, and they have a newer version. I forgot the name of the thing, but That is pretty impressive. This thing I'm showing you right now is very impressive. The newer one is going to just blow you away. It's a little more expensive, but again, with all these things, you get what you pay for, right? So my question was, what are the top 5 risks for Apple right now? So this is what comes back with chunks the answers, right? So number one, I get a code 400. It just couldn't process the request, and that's okay. So I think somehow GPT made a mistake, but it picked itself up really quick and came back with some really impressive answers. So this is my question, okay? Again, what are the top 5 risks for Apple right now? And I can't do this in real time because I can't share my API key with you, right? But just again, change the key, change the path to where these files are saved on your local machine, right? And you can do all of this interactively yourself and ask any question you want. I asked a few questions, and the last one before I saved this down was whether the top 5, I actually spelled the wrong, but this thing is smart enough to figure that out. Top 5 risks. So intense competition. The market for Apple's products and services are highly competitive, characterized by aggressive pricing competition, frequent introductions of new products and services, and short product life cycles involving industry standards and rapid adoption of technological advances, advancements by competitors. Okay, so that's a top risk. So that's pretty impressive. It scanned through all those 5 SEC 10K filings. It came back with that. I'm like, wow, that was pretty amazing. The second thing it came back with, dependence on similar or limited resources for components, although most components essential to Apple's business are generally available from multiple sources. Certain components are currently obtained from single or limited sources. So again, that's pretty impressive. That's a big risk for Apple, right? You have a big company, a $1 trillion company that you're operating, and some resources just come from one single source, right? So that is a bottleneck. That's a risk for Apple. That's very impressive that GPT picked that up from the 10K. Intellectual property infringement. Again, this is spot on, guys. This is pretty incredible. Many of Apple's competitors seek to compete primarily through aggressive pricing and very low cost structures. By eliminating Apple's products and infringing on its intellectual property, this could potentially lead to disputes or financial losses. So I don't know what happened here. I can't explain the first thing. We got a small error. But with this one question, what are the top 5 risks for Apple? I'm kind of blown away here. Okay, so it came up with number 4 and then number 5. Dependence on new product launches. Apple's financial performance is significantly impacted by the timing of market reception and service introduction. If new products fail to gain market acceptance, revenue and profitability could be negatively affected. That is a big risk, right? That's a huge risk. Supply chain disruptions. Substantially all of Apple's hardware products are manufactured by outsourcing partners, primarily located in Asia. If you've watched the news at all lately, you already know this. Any disruptions in these regions due to political instability, natural disasters, or other reasons could impact Apple's manufacturing and distribution capability. So where the top 5 risks, I got the top 5 risks. It took a few seconds to process the data, and it's scanning over 5 years of data too. Remember, we have 5 10Ks, and it actually gave me a third chunk, okay? So I have 5 more risks right here based on Apple's 10K filings, the risk for Apple right now. So I'm asking it like 3 different versions just to give me like a comprehensive picture, right? If this is true and this other thing is true and this third thing over here is true, well, it's probably true, right? If you just have one person telling you one thing, but you have no baseline for comparison, is that really truth or not truth? It's kind of hard to figure that out, but it's given me 3 chunks of responses. First chunk kind of failed here, but that's okay. I'll forgive it because we got 2 good chunks with excellent responses here. So continuing on, impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has disrupted Apple's manufacturing and supply chain. The future of the pandemic is uncertain. So this probably came a little bit earlier, probably back to 2020, 2021. That was more of a risk. Now I think we're through most of the pandemic, although the effects are still lingering. If you don't believe me, just go outside and look around and you'll see the impact of the pandemic is still here, right? So it's not as bad as it was in 2020, but it's still around. I think this comment came from earlier in the SEC filings, probably 2020 or 2021. Global and regional economic conditions, Apple's international operations, and dependence on global and regional economic conditions make it vulnerable to adverse macro conditions. Yep, that's true. This is all true. Trade tariff barriers. Yep, you see that in the news right now with China, right? With our current president of the United States, talking about all this nonsense with trade tariffs and things like that, right? So that's a big risk. Competition and rapid technological change. The market for Apple's products and services are highly competitive and subject to rapid technological change. Apple's ability to compete successfully depends on its ability to innovate new products and services and technologies in a timely manner. So that's definitely a risk. Intellectual property infringements is another topic. Many of Apple's competitors seek to compete by emulating Apple's products and infringing on its intellectual property and all the innovation that it comes up with, right? So that's definitely a risk, right? And number 5, I asked for 5 and it gave me exactly 5. Dependence on suppliers and manufacturers. A majority of Apple's supply chain, manufacturing, assembly activities are located outside of the United States. Any instability or insolvency among its suppliers, manufacturers, or logistic providers could have a significant impact on Apple's operations and performance. So guys, this is pretty huge. We just created a chat bot that we can interact with. You can feed in any data. I'm just happening to get Apple's 10Ks. It's just an idea I came up with. You can feed in any source of data, right? Put in your API key right here, okay? And you load your data. Now, you don't really do this with ChatGPT. You're not really loading files into like the web-based ChatGPT. I think there might be, maybe now there is a way to upload files. I haven't looked at that in a while, but I thought this was an excellent way to create a chat tool and test it, right? I think the functionality is very impressive. And if you work at a company where your boss comes up and says, hey, we want to create a chat tool so we can summarize our data, our corporate data, our intellectual property, our files, our Excel workbooks, our Word documents, our text files, our PDFs. I have a couple other videos about how to do that, very demonstrating how to do that. You can check it out on my channel. And this is just one more tool that you can put into your toolbox to go ahead and train it and test it on any body of data. It's called a corpus of data, and then interact with the chatbot and ask it questions, okay? So again, you can create a key down here. It's free to create the key. To use this tool, costs pennies. It's not much at all. Totally worth it. Totally worth it, guys. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to wrap up the video right now. Thanks for your time. Hopefully this was informative and educational and somewhat inspirational too. This is how you create an AI chatbot and do NLP summarization. Okay, so thanks for your time, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.